Hi, everyone. It's Angie Hooper from the Happy at Life Success Plan and Happy at Law. Today, we're going to walk through the process of determining your top core values and the characteristics that tell you when that core value is being activated. This is a really important foundational step because up until now, you've been measuring yourself against other people's standards, external values. Maybe that's been a customer or a company mission statement, rules of your profession, annual review rules or measurements, even back to the time when you were getting grades in school or a class rank. Now, some of those external standards are important for a successful life. For instance, if you have professional ethics rules for a license, or you work for a company that has a mission statement. But even while you're looking at those external rules, you are aligning those external rules to your core values, even if you don't realize at the time that that's what you're doing. And when you bump up against a situation where your core values don't align to the group rules or the external standard, you're going to feel stress and conflict. You're going to feel that discomfort in your heart, in your gut, that you can't even really explain. So, how do you know when your core values are aligned with the decision you're about to make? And it's when you feel energized and empowered by that decision instead of uncertain and second guessing yourself and full of regret. So, let's talk about what we're going to go over in our time today. The first step is going to be a process to start from a big list of values and narrow those down to your top 5 core values. Then we're going to go through a process to identify the characteristics that tell you when your core value has been activated. And those characteristics are going to be the way that you can recognize out in the real world when a decision or a person or a process or a place or thing is aligned to your core value or opposing your core value, right? And that's going to help you make decisions, understand why you're uncomfortable. It's going to do a lot that we'll talk about when we get there. And then I'm going to give you some homework to assess your core value and characteristic alignment and frequency. How often can you recognize when these core values are in the mix and use that to your advantage to make decisions that you never have to second guess again and leave regret in the past? So let's get started. The first thing we need to level set on is what exactly is a core value? I mean, what's different about a core value than a good idea or something, like an aspirational goal, so to speak? So, as you work through this exercise to identify your unique combination of core values, keep in mind that we're not trying to identify an external standard that you think is a good idea, right? We've done enough of that in our lives. And some people have a background with religious tenets that they've adopted, or maybe they've been part of a group that had certain standards of behavior. And probably the easiest one to think about is if you were in scouting and you were thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent, right? Those are ideals that you held yourself to in a certain situation, but not necessarily one of your core values, right? And so as you go through the process, remember that it's not about right or wrong. It's not about better and worse. It's not about choosing the values that you think you should have. It's about identifying those core values that light you up inside, the ones that really motivate you. So, all of the answers here are going to be the right answer because it's going to be the right answer for you. Now, what we're doing today is to identify those core values that motivate you, that light you up inside. And so I'm inviting you to trust yourself to choose perfectly without overthinking, without trying to, so to speak, get the right answer, right? Now, we want to make a slight distinction, right, between a belief and a value. So, a belief is a thought that we think or an assumption we make that we accept as true. A core value is an ideal that motivates us, the kind of idea that lights up your soul, the principles that will get you out of bed in the morning, or the principles that'll keep you going when you think there's no way you can keep going on. It just propels you forward really in a powerful and in an enjoyable way because it aligns with who you are deep down in your soul. Now, the first thing you're going to do as you look at the workbook is you're going to see a list that starts here and flip the pages if you've got a hard copy of your workbook, or scroll down through if you're on the electronic version. It's a pretty long list. So, what we're going to do right now is I'm going to give you a little bit of time to go through that list. And remember, the first reaction is the best reaction, the first thought is the best thought. So, as you go through that list, circle the 10 or so that most appeal to you right now. Don't overthink it. Don't try and be right. Don't try and be anything. Just answer as you are, not as you think you need to be, right? Really look for the values on this list that make you feel happy and light in your soul. Okay. So go through the list, circle the ones that appeal to you. We're going to make our way down to 10 and then take it from there. So, here on the recording, you'll see a picture of some clouds floating by to give you a little bit of time. If you need more time than that, just pause the recording now. All right. Now, as you look at the list of words that you've circled, you're going to flip over to the next page in the workbook. You're going to see a worksheet that looks like this. It's going to have a place to record your top 10 values. So, from those items you circled, choose the top 10 that speak to you and write those here. And remember, you can have a belief that a value is important without it being one of your core values. For a lot of folks that live in the United States, individual freedom is a really important idea for them, but not necessarily one of their top 5 core values that motivate them to take action or to jump out of bed in the morning and feel passionate about something they're doing. Or it might be that family is something you think is important, but when it comes down to your top 5 core values that guide your decision making, it might actually be a slightly different value that guides your decisions, and your family's also important to you, right? So just because something's important to you doesn't mean it necessarily makes the list. So you can take that worry off your plate. Now, what if you circled more than 10 items? What you'll do here is as you go through that list, go ahead and write down the first 10. And as you write them down, notice if one value description word that was on the list is really similar or even the same thing as a word you circled earlier in the list. So, for instance, if you circled balance as one of your core value, as one of these top 10 values, and then you circled the word harmony, those might actually be the same thing in terms of how they feel for you. One's just later in the alphabet than the other, and so it showed up later on the list. So choose the word between those two that feels the most exciting, the most engaging, the one that kind of just gives you that happy feeling in your heart when you think about it. And it might be balance or harmony, but you're combining those really similar ideas into one slightly bigger bucket for this top 10 list. So look for those items that are really have so much in common. It's really the same idea if you have more than 10. We're going to see the clouds again for a little bit. And then when you see the Happy at Law Angie Hooper coaching logo, we'll be back. If you need more time, pause the video. All right. Now, from the 10 items you circled, we're going to make some choices. I want you to choose the top five, those top five values that affect your life today. The values that are the basis of the way you make decisions, the way you live your life, the when you feel the best, those values that feel harmonious to you. Now, don't worry if you feel like you have more than 5 values. That would actually make sense. But what we're looking for here are the top 5, right? The hill you're willing to die on, so to speak, right? Those top 5 values where if something's happening out of alignment with that value, you just can't be comfortable. So I want you to take about 2 or 3 minutes to do this. You'll see the clouds again, and if you finish early, you can fast forward to that Happy at Law logo. If you need a bit more time, pause the video. But don't overthink this. Your first thought will be your best thought. All right. Okay. Now that you have narrowed it down to your top 5 values, it's time to dig into what those values mean to you, right? So we're going to do some definitions. We're going to take each of those values and do our best to describe that value and what it looks like when it's in action in the real world. And here's why it's important to create a definition of your core values and include those characteristics of the value that tell you when that value is being honored or when it's being challenged. And the reason is a value that I express in a particular way. You might share with me, but you express it differently, right? So let's imagine that there's a person that you know who only wears clothing and shoes made from organic cotton and leather, which comes from agriculture but consumes a lot of water. And they've got a friend that thinks that wearing only synthetic leather and leather fabrics, which are made, or sorry, synthetic leather and fabrics, which are made from plastic, made from byproducts of fossil fuels, right? What if I told you both of them had a core value of environmentalist, but they express it completely differently? You see how that works? So they both share the value depending on how that value is defined and the characteristics that tell us when that value is an action. So, what we're going to do right now is take a few minutes to create a definition for each one of your core values. And that's going to include a description of the characteristics of that value that tell you when that value is being engaged. And this is going to be key for making decisions and creating a success plan. Um, you can do this by recognizing that when characteristics of a core value are engaged, it affects what you do, what you say, your idea of who you are. It can affect how you feel, what you consume, what you buy, what you eat, what you wear. The characteristics of your core value will guide what and how you give to others, how you relate to yourself and other people. So, the example from my own list was kind of a surprise to me when I took myself through this process. I discovered, kind of to my surprise, that one of my core values is something that I call courtesy. Now, I knew that I really valued respect for other human beings. I knew that human dignity was really important to me. And when I went through this process, the best sort of bucket for me to put all of that into was an idea of courtesy being my core value. And when I see courtesy in action, when I see someone hold the door open for a person carrying packages, when I see someone being polite and kind and saying thank you and being respectful of another person's opinion, it engages and aligns with my core value of courtesy. And so the characteristics of my core value of courtesy are polite behavior, respectful conversation, honoring other people, honoring human dignity, holding the door for other people, those types of activities. And some of the things that might be helpful for you to include as a characteristic might not seem that big of a deal on the surface, but it's a shortcut to tell you when that core value is being engaged. You see how that works? So now we're going to take some time and you don't have to do these in any particular order, although you can write down core value number one can either be the first thing on your list of five, or it can be the one that feels the most important or clear to you. So you don't have to do these in a particular order, but you can if that helps you. So you're going to write down core value number one, and then you're going to take a few minutes to talk about what that means to you. And if you need a little help getting jump started, go back and look at your list of 10 and the items you circled. And if your value was a combination of other ideas, think about using some of those words in your definition or as characteristics of that value.